please say some words about the Khuram Murad Memorial Lecture.
Our distinguished speaker for Khuram Murad lecture series, Professor Ijaz Akram, very esteemed faculty members from UMT and other academic institutions, our dear students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I am delighted that this is now 6th lecture, and the space between lectures is being reduced every time. So we hope we can have the next one after 6 months instead of a year, so that we can make up for the loss in the past. It has been almost 20 years that Khuram Murad passed away. He was, very frankly, my father. He was also my mentor, my coach, my teacher, my inspiration, my model, role model, my hero. And every moment that I have spent with him has added value to my intellect, has helped me sharpen my thoughts, has illuminated some aspects of dialogue and debates that were going on between us all the time. This evening is in that spirit of creative and critical thinking, for which I hold him to a very high pedestal. He was a scientist by his mind, by his originality. He had the mind of a scientist. He was very objective, very rational. He was ruthless in his evaluation of facts, in discriminating facts from values, and in filtering out all the layers of social reality to find out what is truth. He engaged himself into inquiry about what Islam is, what Islam means today, what Islam represents today, where Muslim stands, and how can Muslims be better today. These were soul-searching questions that engaged his mind. He wouldn't accept what was told by anyone. He was impressed by the thoughts of Sayyid Walala Maududi. But many times I've seen him openly disagreeing with even Sayyid Maududi, or finding alternate ways. It was very hard to convince him by quoting someone big that this is the person who said this. It would carry no weight in his eyes. He would evaluate everything under his close scrutiny, and unless it holds itself, it is able to hold itself under his close scrutiny, that he would accept it and then take it forward for its further evolution. So that was something which was really impressive. And he was very open, he had a very open mind. without any bias or prejudice. He would enter into dialogue and discussion without any predetermined solution or predetermined responses or answers. He would meditate, he would contemplate, he would reflect, he would apply his critical, reflexive, reflective faculties, and he would engage his mind to find out what's best, what's the ideal, what's optimal. He possessed some really amazing qualities. He was a very ordinary man, just like us. But he built himself and he made himself to a very amazing persona. He was at once very good in terms of quantitative analysis. He would use slide rule himself, and in all his geographical and maps, he was engineer in the field of water resources, management of water resources, and his most favorite professional task was to design dams with multiple outcomes such as irrigation, power, community development, agriculture, water management, environment, all put together. Almost all water resources projects in Bangladesh from 1960 to 1970 had his design, his inputs. So he would do all calculations in the night by himself. He would not trust any engineer doing it, and there were no computers those days. He would be using slide rules, and not one slide rule. He would be using 2-3 slide rules at once. So one slide rule for this, one slide, and I was admiring all the time that slide rule. And although when I took up engineering, and I took up civil engineering just because my father was civil engineer, so I, for the sake of imitation, bought one slide rule and got it imported from Germany actually, because that was the time of calculator now. So he was very good with numbers and calculations, and I seen his exam copies from University of Minnesota, where he did his MS in 1959. That he would get numbers like, from math professors in maths, like 110 out of 100, 115 out of 100, 120 out of 100, 95 out of 100. So he stood like first class first, and he also took first class first position in any university in civil engineering, as well as in matriculation and intermediate. He was throughout first class first. So very good with numbers. On the other hand, he was very good on qualitative grounds. So a person having both left and right brain, this was very unique to me. He was good with numbers and good with qualitative facts, assessing them, qualifying them, understanding abstract realities, and figuring out what is ambiguous, what is very uncertain, unpredictable, what is hard to see. He was very good in those terms as well. Secondly, he was an idealist, and he would take a lot of pain to bring something at the mark, meeting the quality, exceeding the mediocrity. And that really hurt him a lot, because I would see people not performing, people not able to match to what he is expecting. And that put him to a lot of pain, but he would not compromise. He would not budge that, okay, this is me, all right, this is you, all right, I take it, okay, just let's go home. No. He would just try to make sure again and again to achieve a quality which surpasses what has already been achieved. So this was his idealism with everything. On the other hand, he was very pragmatic. How it works, how to be, what are the resources, what are the objectives, what can be done today, this hour, this moment, this minute. and how to get forward, how to move forward. So he was a balance between idealism and pragmatism. These two qualities gave him the playground, a chance in which, where he could then make progress. He was able to make progress while having lofty goals and very high standards before him. Thirdly, he was deep into theory, and I didn't see him much reading. He always had his own library and would read whenever he would get time. But he was also activist. So while he would find time to get new knowledge, but he would not waste time in getting knowledge, and he would not busy himself with just books, flouting around books. So he would read very focused, what is most important, what is relevant, to the extent it is useful, and get on with the activity, with the work. So it was again, I felt that there's a balance. And what he wrote did not come out of his readings. I think most of it came out of his thinking. Readings made a ground, but he was an engineer, so he had a lot of time devoted to his profession. And he would spend a lot of time reading Quran and reading Hadith, and he knew Arabic, Persian, English, Urdu, Bengali, all these languages. So this was again a balance. I see people, we academic, our job is to read, then speak, write, and then tell. All right? We are not activists, and it's not required. All we need to make progress and get promotion is to go to the go to the conferences, read papers, and get promotions, and that's the end of it. All right? But for a person who is ideologue, who is deep into theory, to also remain in touch with the ground realities, and to be able to turn around things, to be able to make a difference, was a great challenge. So when you get out to the ground, you have to plunge yourself into the currents of time. And you have to be very realistic. Your feet is on the ground. Your mind is high on the skies, looking in the horizon. So this was again, I found that he was activist. He didn't miss any appointment. He was never lazy. He was never lounging for nothing. He was always active and very active. Very swift and quick movements, very brisk in his walk, and very brief in his talk, not unlike me. So he was, in that respect, again, someone I would always try to emulate. His grip on theory, on knowledge and new knowledge, current cutting-edge knowledge, and his ability to move around things. So he was a good organizer. He was a very good organizer, a very good manager. He moved by he had his own diary, his own system. He was very responsible. Before he died, could you imagine? I saw an accounting book in which 40 years of accounts were written. Every penny that he received and every penny that he spent was written in that accounting book. Every penny that he received and every penny that he spent. 40 years of accounts in one book. So he was he held himself accountable to very high, again, standards. So this was very, surprising for me. I could never imagine that every penny that he received from anywhere in the world and every penny that he spent for anything is written on his book. So this was again this speaks of a man who pays attention to details and who feels that he's accountable and responsible and who has something in mind. Lastly, I must also point out that he was in this material world of time and space and engagements and obsessions and possessions and everything. But he was also very spiritual. In my life, I never saw a night when he did not wake up to be with his Lord. In my lifetime, I never saw it. Sometimes he is traveling, sometimes it is very short night, sometimes it's a long night, sometimes he is ill. Nothing could deviate him out of this schedule. And I heard someone who was with him when he was studying, and he said this was same when he was a student. That person told me that he was with him for weeks, and he never saw him, getting away from this ignoring or bypassing this. So this was such a commitment, a strong commitment. And for hours, I would see that he would be he would be silent, he would be just his eyes closed, sitting, reading Quran, and just with nothing, obviously. So it is a deep meditation. He was very spiritual, very transcendental in his thoughts. And on the other hand, while he was spiritual, he had a tremendous warmth for even strangers. I would see strangers coming to meet him, and he would embrace them like they are friends for ages, or relatives for ages. I saw one man who really converted and became his great disciple, because he said that I was just a student, and I went and he was standing there. I said, this is me, my name is this, and he suddenly embraced me, hugged me, and so warmly and so long, and such emotions and sentiments transpired in him that he said that I don't need anyone else. He's the one I was looking for, who can give me the hope and the faith. So this was his personal touch, a very strong spark that he would leave in people whom he would meet. So a very short life, but very impactful. Coming to this topic, when Junaid proposed this topic, I immediately found it very relevant to him, because he spent good 10 years at a stretch in United Kingdom, and his objective to be in United Kingdom was to find ways to communicate with the West. And before that, he was in United States for about a year and a half to do his master's, and then again about a year or 2 years for work in Colorado. So he was always interested that how this universal message of Islam can be presented and can be made acceptable in a language, in a form, in a manner, and in a way that it would find its natural relevance, acceptance. You would see that there is a need for it. There is a vacuum. Islam has the answer. Islam has the solution. But the jargon, the overall language, the metaphor, its presentation, and its everything was so much alienated, so much lacking in communication and appeal, which was very disturbing to him. And the reason that he went there was to contribute to that bridge making. And I think he did something. He wrote during his stay there in English. He started writing in English, and each time he would write and publish something, it would beat his own previous writing. He discovered his own class and his own style in writing, which I found really very interesting, very emphatic, very impressive and very tasteful, very good prose, and that is his contribution to it. And someone from New York University wrote an article on his contribution to on communicating Islam to the West. So I felt that this is Eurocentrism is the topic of today. The only image that comes to my mind now as I stand as far as Eurocentrism is concerned, that people from Northern Africa who have everything, oil, their tribes, their environment, everything. When I see them loaded ships, and when I see them knocking the shores of Europe, those who have all the wealth in the world, their wealth is in the grounds, oil wealth. Those who never thought of leaving the heat and the sun that they can enjoy in the middle of the desert. When I see their generations being drowned on the shores of Europe, I feel there is something terribly wrong going on. And this is about Eurocentrism. Thank you.